There's an old saying that nobody is perfect, and I'm certainly in that category. I've studied a lot, I've learned a lot over the years, but I have made some mistakes. And one of the more notable mistakes I made was when I was writing for the magazines. This was in the 1990s. I was asked by the publisher of the magazine, to interview the CEO of a company that was about to produce a new sports supplement. The magazine that I was writing for also sold their own line of supplements, and they were going to carry this man's product. Now, the product in question is a substance called D-ribose. What is D-ribose? D-ribose is a simple sugar or a monosaccharide. It's not commonly found in foods, but it's made in the body. In the body, it combines with phosphorus, which is known as phosphorylation. Phosphorylated ribose becomes a subunit of both ATP and DNA. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. ATP is the most elemental form of energy produced in the body. Carbohydrates, fats, proteins, everything that can be converted to energy is eventually converted to ATP. It's the most elemental form of energy, as I said. Unfortunately, ATP doesn't last very long. It only lasts, for example, when you're working out, the first use of energy would be ATP, but only lasts for about 6 seconds. Normally, ATP is replenished by creatine stored in the muscle. I've talked about this before. Creatine acts like a second battery because the way ATP works, ATP, actually the structure consists of adenosine triphosphate, which means the triphosphate means that it contains 3 phosphate groups. When one of these phosphates is broken off, that creates energy, and that's where the energy is produced from ATP. So now ATP, when it loses one phosphate, it's called ADP or adenosine diphosphate. Then another phosphate's released and it becomes AMP or adenosine monophosphate. Now, creatine comes into play because it supplies the missing. Well, let me backtrack. Creatine is stored in the muscle as creatine phosphate. So it's basically a kind of a storehouse of phosphate for depleted ATP. Creatine will contribute one of its phosphates and rapidly replenish ATP, I know it gets complicated. It will replenish ADP back into ATP. Now, the third one, which is adenosine monophosphate, the problem with that is that it's not as recoverable as the others. In other words, AMP tends to be lost from the cells. And this is where ribose comes in, because the way ribose works, ribose can keep or help the cells to retain AMP, which can then be used for the replenishment of ATP. Now, normally, when when you deplete this AMP, it takes a couple of days for the body to replenish it. Now, the idea is that by taking a ribose supplement, you rapidly retain this AMP. Therefore, you have greater stores of ATP in the muscle, therefore greater energy and greater exercise recovery. That's the way ribose was supposed to work. Now, some initial studies with, well, let me backtrack again. Where did this idea of providing ribose to athletes come from? Well, some studies of hospitalized patients with heart failure. Now, in heart failure, you have a real depletion of energy stores in the heart. The heart's failing. It can't produce energy. So if you provide the heart with certain nutrients that can increase energy utilization, such as coenzyme Q10, which will help the cardiac mitochondria function better, and if you supply ribose intravenously at a dose of about 100 milligrams, you get a pretty good effect on heart energy stores. So, there's been a couple of studies that showed this. So based on this, a company was established in Minneapolis, which quickly got a use patent for the use of ribose as a sports supplement. And this was the company that negotiated with the magazine that I wrote for to help sell for the magazine's supplement line to sell this ribose supplement. In other words, this Minneapolis company held the exclusive right to use ribose as a sports supplement. So, see what I'm saying? So now, What happened after that was this is where my mistake came in. I was asked by the publisher to interview the CEO of this company that held the use patent on ribose, and I had looked before prior to interviewing this man. I looked at the previous studies of ribose, including the studies with heart patients, and at that time there was a couple of initial studies where they provided athletes with ribose also in intravenous form. Well, what they would do is they'd cut off the blood flow to the muscle. It's called an ischemic effect, and that would also decrease ATP production. And then they would give these subjects, human subjects, they gave them ribose, and the ribose seemed to help replete the ATP. And so, at the time I interviewed this CEO of the ribose company, ribose looked very promising. So I interviewed him, and what I found out before I interviewed him was that in addition to being the CEO of this company that produced ribose, he also claimed to hold a doctorate in biochemistry, which made it even more interesting, since he was able to explain to me in detail all the chemical and biochemical intricacies of ribose and exactly how it would work. So first I did a question and answer interview with the guy, and then I did another separate article on ribose, in which the title was "Ribose, the Next Creatine." In other words, I was so convinced by that point that ribose would be an effective supplement for people engaged in weight training that I thought it would gain the same amount of popularity as creatine in the bodybuilding and athletic world. Little did I know what was about to occur. Shortly after these two articles were published, and of course by then the magazine that I was writing for was already selling a ribose supplement, which I had licensed out from this same guy that I interviewed in Minneapolis. But in the meantime, not long after those articles were published, a series of articles were published in various medical journals, which tested the use of oral, not intravenous, oral ribose. Now you have to understand, the supplement being sold was an oral ribose supplement, and the suggested dose was 5 grams a day. And in these new studies that came out, out of 5 studies, only 1 study showed any benefit at all from ribose. 4 other studies, I should say, which provided a dose of up to 20 grams a day, in other words, over 4 times the recommended amount of ribose, found absolutely no effects, no ergogenic effects, no increased ATP, nothing, nada, zero. Based on this, I didn't want to write anything about it until I contacted that CEO again who I had previously interviewed. So I called his office about 3 times. He knew me because I had interviewed him. I never got any return call. I sent him 5 emails, and in the emails I actually sent him links to these new studies which showed no effect of oral ribose. And I wanted his side of the story. I wanted to be fair about it. I wanted to see how he reacted. He did not answer any of my emails. So after 5 emails and 3 phone calls, I decided this was what they call in legal circles, a nolo contendere response, meaning that he was basically pleading guilty without answering me. In other words, I concluded that ribose was not an effective supplement whatsoever. I still believe that to this day. I think it's on my list of supplements that don't work. I don't recommend it. I basically think it's just absolutely useless for any type of bodybuilding purposes. It's a complete waste of money. Now, despite all this, I was surprised to see about a week ago in the journal the International Society of Sports Nutrition, they came out with a new study called "The Influence of D-ribose Ingestion and Fitness Level on Performance and Recovery." Now, the thing that caught my eye immediately was one of the authors of the study was the same man, the same CEO who I had interviewed and who refused to accept my phone calls and answer my emails about the failure of ribose to work in human studies. He was one of the authors of this new study. Now, what this new study found was that providing 10 grams a day, they gave you the 10 grams of ribose or a placebo to 2 groups of people. One group was basically kind of out of shape. They had a low VO2 max level. The other one had a high VO2 max level. What the study showed was that providing 10 grams of ribose to people with low VO2 max, and those people that were kind of out of shape or untrained, seemed to have a good effect. But when they gave it to people that were already in good shape or had a high VO2 max, the supplement again did absolutely nothing. So what can we conclude from all this? There's an outside chance that, let's say you're untrained and you're out of shape. If you take ribose, it might slightly increase your recovery ability, maybe increase your ATP utilization. I would not count on it. I definitely would still not recommend using ribose as a supplement because, again, a number of studies have provided really large doses of ribose, found no effect. These studies involve both untrained and trained people. The only problem, if you want to call it that, with the studies was they all involved, just like this new study, they involved the subjects doing high intensity exercise on an exercise cycle. None of the studies that tested ribose involved actual weight training. So for all I know, giving ribose in a weight training protocol might even be worse. They might not even notice any results whatsoever. So if you want to supplement, if you want to boost your ATP, creatine is still the way to go. Creatine does work. It has a ton of evidence, works for 80% of people that use it. What about ATP supplements themselves? That I will be discussing in an upcoming article of my Applied Metabolics newsletter. There's been a number of studies on actual straight ATP supplements. Now, you would think that taking an ATP supplement would be probably the best of all ways to increase your ATP and energy stores in muscle. But, when you read my article, you'll find the answer to that. It's not quite as cut and dried as it might appear. Now, if you want further information about nutrition, exercise science, hormonal therapy, supplements, the truth about supplements, fat loss techniques that work, anti-aging research, ergogenic aids, all the truth. I'm not aligned with any food supplement company. I've learned from that mistake I made. That was over 20 years ago. I'm much more skeptical of supplements now than I was back then. Although at the time I wrote that article, you have to understand there was pretty good evidence for ribose. But today I'd wait a little longer before I'd write an article like that. So I learned from my mistake. In my current writing, I'm much more discerning, and you'll find the truth of this in Applied Metabolics. So subscribe today at www.appliedmetabolics.com. I should also add that I only answer questions submitted to me. I don't answer unsolicited questions. I only answer questions submitted to me by subscribers, current subscribers to Applied Metabolics newsletter. So if you ask me in the comment section below this video, unfortunately, I will not respond to any comments. I don't have time to do that, and my subscribers come first. So I will only answer their questions. I have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics site. The subscribers are welcome to ask me questions. In addition to that, subscribers get entry into my private Facebook page for Applied Metabolics. As soon as you subscribe, you get an invitation to join this private Facebook page. On the private Facebook page, I also answer questions and also provide a tremendous amount of additional material on exercise, nutrition, and medicine in general. It's on the Applied Metabolics private site, again, only open to subscribers. So subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. Best information anywhere, beats out any website, any blog. It includes my 56 years of constant study and experience, including empirical experience, actually working out, which a lot of these people that write this kind of stuff have never even set foot in a gym. So that separates me from the others. So again, www.appliedmetabolics.com. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. They're the best. Take care.